It looks like we're going to go live to Facebook. We are, and then I'll hit the record down here. Where is that? Okay. Oh, record. Well, welcome to episode 10 of Check the Gate, our weekly show one-on-one with the Northeast Filmmakers Lab. And this week's guest is Scilla Andreen from IndieFlix. Welcome, Scilla. I'd like to start off each episode with a little beverage. I've got white wine, I've got water, I've got seltzer, I've got red wine. Any preference? Red wine.
Yeah.
Here you go. All right, so it's worked a few times. Let's see if we can do it. I know you're all the way in Seattle. I'm in Albany, but I'm just gonna reach there. If you can get that, there you go.
Ew.
All
That's
right.
lovely. Oh, what kind is it?
This is Josh.
Oh, I love the label.
Or low.
Ooh.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, nice legs too. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Check the Gate is a weekly program hosted by the Capital Cinema Cultural Exchange, the nonprofit organization empowering filmmakers to complete and present their projects in a rapidly changing media landscape by leveraging world-class industry expertise through the Northeast Filmmakers Lab. By the way, submissions to the 7th edition of the Northeast Filmmakers Lab, which will take place in November, is now open on Film Freeway. And hope that we'll post that address here in the chat session. Thanks to our co-producer, Eric Boweiler, our publicist, Tammy Reese, and behind the scenes student intern, a Great Dane from the University of Albany, Luke Williams. Today's sponsor includes Price Chopper, Market 32. Not just in your neighborhood, they're your neighbor. Albany Wine and Dine for the Arts. Crew Me Up, crewmeup.com. Connect, Create, Collaborate, and yayflix.com out of Toronto. So next Thursday is May 28th. Our guests will include Dan Mervish of the Slam Dance.
Love Dan.
And I'm so looking forward to having him on. Also, you can donate to us at cinemaexchange.org/donate. For those that don't know, Check the Gate is a term on the set. When the gate is good, production moves forward. And with that, let's move forward. Scilla Andreen is award-winning producer, director, Emmy-nominated costume designer, author, which I want to hear about, CEO and co-founder of IndieFlix Group, Inc., a global streaming online screening distribution service that focuses on content for a purpose. I love that. Scilla's work has been featured in the New York Times, Good Morning America, Today, and South China Morning Post. She's produced and or distributed social impact films, Nevertheless, Screenagers, Angst, and Empowerment Project. Scilla directed and distributed 2 feature documentaries like, which I just took a look at, I want to talk about that, a documentary about the impact of social media on our lives, and Upstanders in 2020. Congratulations.
Thank you.
An in-depth look at resilience, attention, and the power of connection to end bullying. Scilla is included in Screen International's Women to Watch, Variety's Women's Impact Report, and PSBJ Women of Influence. She's a popular speaker at Sundance Con, CES, South by Southwest, Be Bold, and Women in Film. She's also the founder of IndieFlix Foundation, and it's her mission to change the world with film at IndieFlix.com. So welcome, Scilla. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with this thing, COVID. It seems to impact many of us wildly in different ways. Some businesses are shuttering while others are zooming forward. What's been the impact on you, your business, your colleagues, and the industry as you see it?
Yeah. Big question and a really important one. We just to give you a sense of like who we are as a company, IndieFlix, I pivoted about 2.5 years ago to just literally be content for a purpose. kind of found our sweet spot in edutainment. So it doesn't matter if it's shorts, features, documentaries, web series, you name it. That's what we do on the streaming service, IndieFlix.com. And then we have the community screening service, which is where we either acquire or create. So now I'm back to producing and directing social impact films with curriculum and, any sort of companion materials that we take out into schools and corporations and organizations around the world. And so the business has always been, like 50-50. And then there was a time where our offline community events, believe it or not, started to really grow. And while the subscription business was still growing, but much more slowly, this was before COVID-19, the offline screenings, we're probably averaging at least 100 screenings a month somewhere in the world. We're in about 90 countries, and to audiences of either, 25 people to 2,000. We were screening in every classroom. We were screening in boardrooms. It was so busy, and I had to grow the team because there's different time zones, booking, like I basically have 9 bookers or a team of 9, and we're all bookers and community managers and helping people have these community screenings to do good in the world, whether we're talking about bullying, empowerment, screen addiction, anxiety, depression, bullying. So we take out these films. And when COVID-19 hit, we actually saw a little bit of it coming in January because Asia started to push back their screenings, cancel conferences. At first it was just, the protests in Hong Kong. Then it was, coronavirus. So we started to actually plan to create online experiences for Asia. And when it hit in America and literally the schools closed like dominoes across the country, our entire screening distribution service just went completely flat. But the streaming side of the business started to pick up just organically. So, it was suddenly I was repurposing my team to kind of support the streaming side and at the same time help everyone that was kind of freaking out about not being able to do their events, and finish creating the online community events and launch those and get everyone to come on board with that. So now we've righted the ship, it's sailing again. It's been this is a really tired person that you're looking at. Yeah.
Can you see by my hair that I haven't been out to get a cut?
I don't even.
Yeah.
It's funny that I could even be late for a meeting when I'm 10 feet away, or just the way our lives have changed. What I've learned, my team is amazing. The team IndieFlix, I'm in awe of them. They are unbelievable. And so I'm so much closer to the team. We have an office, a beautiful office on the water in Lake Washington. I also have a small office in LA and one in New York. And it's just so funny how like running the entire company remote was also a new thing for me. But we have daily standing meetings. I am closer. We do icebreakers. I feel tighter with the team than I've ever felt with them in person, which I think is kind of interesting. We're all in different time zones too. So, not all, but some are in different time zones because they went home to quarantine or whatever with family. And it's just busted wide open. So for us personally, after going through about 6 weeks of just, I didn't even know what day it was or what time it was. And I think the whole team felt that way.
True.
I think we're going to be fine. And in fact, everything on our roadmap is just completely moved up. I'm doing things that I didn't think I was going to be able to do for another year or two, and I'm doing them in the fall. So I'm really excited about that. I think, I'm someone who loves to study patterns. I just can't help it. It's something I look at, and I'm always someone who likes to put myself in someone else's shoes to see how they feel. And so it's really been an adventure with the way my brain works to be looking at patterns and to be putting myself in other people's shoes. And just from sort of a mental health standpoint, because I have just made, a whole bunch of movies about mental health. I have some information to apply to my observations. And it's pretty interesting how one day I can feel guilty. I can feel great that I feel like, I'm just fine. like nothing's bothering me on this. It's my normal. I'm a workaholic. It's all good. And then there's times where I feel guilty because there are people who are out there who don't have even money to buy food. And I don't even know how I can help them. And then I go through this sort of like array of emotions. And I think, how can I help? How can I make a difference in someone else's life? So that is a driving force for me. And I feel like with IndieFlix, I'm going to finally be able to express that come fall.
That's outstanding. And to have your motto to be movies on purpose or with a purpose, and now you've got this distribution arm that's serving that. When did this start for you? How long ago? How many years has IndieFlix been in business? And
we've been around a long time. We're going to be like that last woman standing thing. I started it with my producing partner, Carlo Scandiuzzi, back in 2004. And we launched in 2005 with 36 titles. And hold on, I'm going to turn my Slack off because everyone is slacking me and it makes these little clicking sounds.
That was funny. I was wondering whether I was doing something or somebody else was like, is Luke letting someone speak?
It's my team. Okay. So what I want to make sure I'm not getting rid of some. Okay. We started IndieFlix as a DVD on demand service when there was one other company doing it. They were doing DVD on demand, and then they got acquired by Amazon, by IMDb. And I'm blanking on their name because we actually did business with them as well. And it was just the two of us back in 2005. And we were literally like creating DVD on demand. And then, it came about that we were playing around with download to own, progressive download. We didn't have the funding for that. My producing partner, we launched the company together. And then after about 6 months, he's a theater guy and he's incredibly talented. And he basically said, I can't see the audience with the internet. This isn't for me. And so here you go. You got 6 weeks of funding. Here's the keys to the kingdom. Go for it. And I didn't know anything. Like I went to NYU to study political science, but I dropped out because I fell in love with a director and started making money doing commercials. And then went on to do costume design for the Wonder Years, Party of Five, Dawson's Creek, and started producing, directing, feature films, short films, and going around the festival circuit where I learned about independent films and realized all these fabulous independent films were there, and Hollywood didn't have the bandwidth to pick them up.
Do you realize that you just went through like so many different industries? Like you were at NYU, political science, then you were costuming on a bunch of television
styling commercials, high-end commercials, making
high-end commercials. And then yeah, that's great. And then you evolve, and then you get this bug for independent film, and then you're seeing that there's this void in the distribution model.
Yeah. And so plus I worked in the studios. I was at Warner Brothers and Sony, and so I had the Hollywood world, but then I was also very much in the independent space, and those were like, I felt like those were my people, and nobody was watching these movies. So I naively thought, oh, I'm just going to hang a shingle because there's all these movies, and we'll pick up what Hollywood isn't picking up, but we were still curated. And it's like I would tell filmmakers, and we had raised enough money. Basically, my partner Carlo helped finance it. And basically, we just thought, this will be easy. Well, it wasn't. People were like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I'd rather no one see my film if I can't be in with Warner Brothers or Artisan or Lionsgate or Fox. It was like, really? Like, you mortgaged your house, you sold your firstborn. Like, really, you don't want to like try to get any of that back? And it was really interesting. I was ill prepared for that. And then when finally people were willing to put their films online, there was this, what I call the entitlement phase. Okay, my movie's online, where's my money? Well, are you marketing it? Are you letting people know about it? Like, well, no, I'm not a marketer, I'm a filmmaker. And I'm like, okay, I was you, I was there, that was me. If we can raise money and we can get actors to come aboard and we can steal locations or whatever, and we can get a movie made and get into a film festival and get people, help them get butts in seats, we can do this. And that was another sort of big learning curve. And then when, it was like every time I turned a corner, there was a new learning curve, but there were gifts, like when streaming came about. Streaming came about. It was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. 2007, 2008. We were early on with Juiced and what was the other one called? Like pre-Hulu days. So we were early adopters and early partners with them, Netflix, iTunes. And it just watching the industry evolve was just, it was such a pleasure to be part of it. And then the world economy went to the toilet. The iPhone came into being. Everyone's like, you're not going to watch a movie on an iPhone. I always felt that a certain generation would watch things on an iPhone. And when my son put headphones on me once and I'm sitting there watching, he was young, he was watching Pirates of the Caribbean, I suddenly was transported into that. And I realized screen size doesn't matter. Do we like the lean back big screen? Absolutely. But the lean in on a plane or in a car or where you just, sure, I'll take that too. It still has to be a great story. And you need good sound. And of course, good picture is great. So going through all of this, I then thought, oh, I'm going to make more money for filmmakers. I ended up becoming an aggregator because we had so much content. At one point, we had over 12,000 titles with worldwide rights. So I was aggregating content for Netflix and iTunes and Hulu. And then all of a sudden I thought, this isn't even fun. Like, I'm just an aggregator and I'm a filmmaker. So.
All right. So define what an aggregator does. You're basically
Sure.
selling other people's content to
I was programming our own content onto other platforms in order to create another revenue stream for the filmmakers. But when you start to see what some of the returns were, and they took forever to pay, and I understand now why it takes forever to pay because there's so much accounting to do. But when you look about like all the different fees that have to be taken out, and then when it finally got to us to pass on to the filmmaker, it was so little I didn't even want to take our fees. So the amount of work that went into it for the little return wasn't worth it to me. At one point it was, and then it started to diminish. So I stopped aggregating years ago, and I just thought, I'm just going to aggregate for myself and just put my energy into helping filmmakers market their films. And as we grew so big, it was hard to spend time marketing films. We'd market collections, we'd market the service. And then of course I missed my filmmaking roots. I'd been a filmmaker forever. So started going back to doing that in addition to being the CEO of IndieFlix. And people were like, how do you do that? It's like, well, we have 6 kids. How do you have 6 kids? You make it work, you coordinate, you're organized, you live in chaos, right? And you still manage to sleep and eat, but it's just more fun, more work, more laughter, more tears, more everything. You're muted, Mike.
Yeah, I mute myself just because I don't want to show up and take over the screen. But thank you so much. That's incredible. And what a journey. It's interesting because I'm actually doing a reality show on a serial entrepreneur, which sounds like you are in some sense that as well. And he's at the point in his life where he wants to downsize the whole empire, but he can't help it, and it just keeps growing. So it's in some ways it resembles that what you've created, and but you want to get back to the thing that makes you most happy, which is filmmaking, storytelling.
Well, it's funny because people always say that. They're like, oh, so would you ever step back from running IndieFlix so you can go back to making movies because you love making movies and you love taking them out and you love doing good in the world with them? But that would be like saying, oh, well, so since you've got this new baby, do you want to take away your firstborn, or do you want to take, like, I love all of my children equally. I love all of my roles equally. There are certain parts of every role that I have in my career I don't particularly love, but you know what? I've learned to do it. It's just like you got to clean your house and do laundry, to maintain a household. So, but right now I'm having fun. I love using both sides of my brain. I love doing financial metrics and modeling things and looking at trends. I love partnerships. I love negotiating contracts. I like coming up with marketing campaigns and measuring that. I love creating content and taking it out into the world and measuring that impact, using that data to create more content to then go back in. I've written a book, which I never thought I would do. I mean,
What's the title of that book?
It's called, I don't know if it's backwards to you guys. It's called The Creative Coping Toolkit.
I can see it. Oh, hang on a second. I'm just going to switch to the other. Go ahead.
And it's basically 10 activities that gamify talking about your feelings. So it's based in cognitive behavioral therapy, and I have a really short attention span, so it's kind of like, it's basically super simple to read. It's not a workbook, but it's just fun. It's got brain science in it. It's got activities that can bring us together and connect, but it's also normalizing the conversation around mental health. And I am such a firm believer, after making these movies, this trilogy of films, Angst, Like, and The Upstanders, I realized that so much is based in mental health. That is the foundation from which we can do all things. And it's not, I mean, there is brain science behind it, but beyond, therapy and medication and all those things, just being good to ourselves, being kind to ourselves, connecting with ourselves allows us to connect with others. It's game changing. And teaching resilience, like there's so many things I've learned, and that's kind of what,
That's awesome.
That's the part I like.
When people ask about the Northeast Filmmakers Lab, we describe one word in terms of what's a lab versus a film festival. And the one word that we describe is relationships. We think that relationships are the way to help you get your film done, stay mentally healthy, break out of that isolation that you might have while you're making your film. You might be stuck, but it's in those 3 days that filmmakers come away with these greatest aha moments, and they feel so liberated. They go off and write, instead of just one thing, they write 10 things, and they're unlocked. And it's part of that, I think, that makes for good mental health and good creativity.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, I think film is the most powerful medium on the planet. Think about a film or films or TV show or something that just helped shape who you are, that you watched as a kid. I mean, that left an imprint on you that to this day stays with you. It couldn't even be the scary stuff too. Like, I don't know which movie it was about the babysitter at home and the guy's, calling her and he's actually in the house. It's like, that haunts me to this day. I have to open a door all the way until it hits the wall. Like, it's so negative and positive, but we can use film to bring us together. We can use film to change the world.
That's amazing. And that's how powerful it is. And by the way, this all resonates with me because in 1992, I established my own company, Videos for Change Productions. I have an MSW background, and I moonlighted as a filmmaker for 6 years before jumping into filmmaking.
I love that.
And so, I bring that whole aspect. Everything you're saying resonates, and I love what you're doing on you're doing it on a world stage, which is very powerful. I just want to let some of our attendees here, Bradford, Catherine, Chi, Sean, anyone else on Facebook, send us your questions. I've got a ton more here. So what are the types of programs that you're looking for now for the platform? Yeah. Short stocks, features, what's playing well right now?
Sure. It's funny, dramas always seem to do well on our platform. Short films do very well. I think it's people's way of sort of sampling. It's also kind of what we promote as well, because we were like, come on, you got 7 minutes, you can check this out. And so I think that's another reason that they are kind of on top of our data. But documentaries, very, very popular. Classics are big, and I think that's because abroad they're very. I was when we had 12,000 titles, and I actually let about 7,000 go, because I really wanted to focus on, movies. Movies all matter, right? But I wanted to more that had some sort of social good to them. And so, we had some pretty rough stuff on there from, grand jury prize winners from an obscure festival somewhere that, has a 6-minute rape scene, but it won the grand jury prize at that thing. And I'm like, that doesn't actually make me feel good. I know it's super great conversation starter, but I wanted to I really wanted to focus on, my nickname's Fortune Cookie. So I kind of wanted to focus on just the good stuff. It's not all goody two shoes stuff. You know, there's hard stuff to watch too.
Yeah.
But the world already has all that. So I thought, let's be different. And by the way, people are like, oh, you're such an indie girl. You love indies. I'm like, no, I actually really don't love indies. I just love good stories. And I don't care if it's an indie or a Hollywood movie. I don't care who's in it. Sure, I have my favorite actors and directors that I love, who I completely support, but I just love a good movie. And I don't care what the running time is or what genre it is. I just don't want to be bored. I want to be inspired. I want to feel something. And so I just love good storytelling. So what was I telling? Oh, so what are we looking for? We're looking for content, not boring content, you know, ideally worldwide rights, because what I'm launching in the fall is going to be worldwide.
What are you launching in the fall? A new album of this, or?
I'm not talking about it completely yet,
Okay.
but I am telling you it's going to be completely different than what we have right now. And it's scary. And I've never done it before. And I feel like 100% it's the right thing to do. And I may blow myself up, I don't know, but I think it's worth it. And I think that I'm rolling the dice big time to do good with. I want to show that, you know, first of all, I love cartels and serial killers and, you know, screwed up detectives and, you know, mass murder shows all over, you know, Amazon and Netflix. And I totally watch all that stuff. Love it. But I want our platform to I just want to model awesome people and awesome stories and underdog stories. And, you know, we're not Disney, and maybe more like participant media.
Oh, I love them. That's
me
cool.
too. So that's kind of more like the model. Not the model, but the kind of content. So
right.
Anything that's inspiring, anything that makes you, when you finish watching, you just want to turn to someone and talk to them about it.
Yeah. So speaking of talking, during this time period where theaters are shuttered,
yeah,
and film festivals are either canceling or going online or going to a drive-in.
Yeah, I love that.
One of the things I think really matters to me, and with the sea of content in Amazon and Netflix, which is great to have access to movies on, you know, at your fingertips or on demand. What I miss is, and maybe Turner Classic Movies does a little bit of this with the curation, the before and the middle and the end of a movie. They'll talk about little tidbits, but that interaction with the director or even the subject of the film, or say the documentary, you know, those are the pieces that I think as an audience goer, watcher, you know, is it possible to make that happen online?
Oh yeah.
You know, and I guess there's chat-based kind of Q&As, but somehow integrating, let's say, you know, you mentioned your sort of the educational aspect. Let's say you have a documentary, you show it in City 1 and City 2, but each of those places needs someone to curate, pull people in, to have that hometown screening, and then bring that audience in, and then to have that post Q&A discussion. Is that, you know, what are some of the solutions out there? Is that anything you're looking into?
Well, I mean, it's so interesting having just sort of dove into the deep end of, you know, now I'm really good at webinars screening events where we watch a movie, we have a Q&A, and then we actually can record it and share it with the people who couldn't make it, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's scary when you think you've got a brand new film that normally would have gone out and done, you know, 5 or 6 or even 10,000 community screenings over a couple of years. Wow. Before it would go online, because that's been our model. And, you know, the thing is that and those are all paid screenings. Like all of those locations pay to watch that movie for 24 hours offline. So moving that online, we have learned that we've made it available basically to an entire community through their inbox. We've created this beautiful dashboard, all the materials in there, at-home discussion guides, all that kind of stuff. And the thing is that it doesn't get watched as much as when we have an actual live event in our theater in the cloud, and then give them access after that for like 48
Right.
hours. The engagement is so much higher. You just need to have that connection. You need to hear from people, and you need to be able to talk to people. Like keeping those Q&As public. I can't tell you how many people are like, oh, we don't want anyone to see the Q&A because trolls or spam or someone's going to ask something inappropriate. It's like that can happen in a theater Q&A.
It always does.
Shy away
Somebody
from it.
hides yep, and they go onto a monologue.
Yeah, it's exactly. but that we learn to deal with that, and so we can't be afraid of that online. And I'm sure that we'll get there. When you don't have a Q&A or a public chat, you're just broadcasting. It's a one-way conversation. I find that not very interesting when you're sitting on a whole chair I'm still like Goldilocks. I've not found the right chair in my house yet.
Oh.
But when you're just staring at your computer, so for me, like I want to be able to watch on my television. I want to be able to talk or be able to interact with who's up there. I want to be able to raise my hand like I were in the audience, but I didn't have to drive anywhere, find parking, get a babysitter, and all that other good stuff. So, that's kind of fun.
That's what I think is the future, and that's where I don't think Netflix or Amazon is focused on that, and that's I think where the community building will be. And
I think it'll come in stages, right? Like if we want mass adoption, I have spent my life on the bleeding edge, which is really fun and different, and I'm super excited about it, but it's really hard to find funding. When you do, I've done screenings in colleges about a project that I picked up, some really incredibly talented filmmakers, where it was all about consent, and it's called The Party, and it was a VR experience, consent and sexual assault on college campuses. We took it out to 5 colleges. We had headsets, this, that, the phone got heated up, the battery went out, and we had, I don't know, like maybe 500 something students watch. And I wanted to get a survey, and I wanted to get information and data and all this stuff. And the first thing I learned was I don't want to do a survey. I don't want to give you feedback. Like I just want to talk after I've watched it. And we had therapists on the ground. We partnered with some great organizations.
wow.
So much work. So when you're doing things, for my film Angst, we created a VR experience. It was a panic attack. And that took a lot of work to create it. Worked with Stephanie, who's just amazing. And that in itself was like a big deal. All the updates and the equipment, there's just too many moving parts. Starting with the chats, starting with this kind of thing here, we're starting to, condition ourselves to be community online, and it will evolve. Whether it's, VR, suddenly we're all sitting together in the theater in London and we're watching a movie and with our headsets and we can ask questions, and I don't know, like the gaming world, we can learn a lot from the gaming world.
Agreed. Yeah, wow. That's amazing. Yeah, all that's really here. It's about bringing it together and whether or not how quickly we want to adapt. Hey, we've got a couple questions. I'm going to unmute Catherine.
Okay.
And Catherine, it looks like you've got a couple questions. So you're welcome to fire both of them.
Hi, everybody. That's probably my clumsiness. I might have typed it in 2 different locations.
Oh, okay.
It's really one question. Hi, Scilla.
Hi.
I wanted to ask you if you have a platform or maybe network associations where you and your company assist writers who are looking to connect and partner with other folks to make their movie made. Like I have a script and I think it's a story that the world needs to hear. What's my next steps? Are there any resources that your organization has?
I think, where are you located?
New York.
So, I'm always a fan of the local film organizations like Women in Film, or like here in Seattle, we have Northwest Film Forum. Being in the film community, I've found that it basically for any industry, but especially I feel like in film, you're as good as your network. Your opportunities are as great as your network. And the beautiful thing about film is a dropout can become a CEO like me. And so get to know people who you just truly connect with and like, who are talented and authentic and good people and are creative and they work well. they will one day rise up the ranks. I mean, I worked with people who, you know, he was a PA and she was, you know, assistant in casting, and that person was just a writer's assistant or something, not just, but a writer's assistant. And now they're showrunners and they're, you know, third top brass at CAA. And this, like everybody, the beautiful thing about the film business is you just never know. Like it's in movies that the guy in the mailroom runs the studio, right? Like the opportunity to grow within is there. So as a writer, get out there, get to know people in your field. If you are in a bubble, you won't go anywhere. Submitting stuff takes a while. Know who, where do you, I always work backwards. If you wrote something, who's the audience? Where does that audience consume content? Is that place that they consume content looking for more content? How do you get to them? What are all the production companies that support that content? How do I get to those production companies? Work backwards.
Okay. I understand the concept of reverse engineering. That's very, very helpful. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
You know, and also it's timing and just keep at it too, right? Like there's still things I keep at it. And I start now because I have so many balls in the air, I've learned maybe that one thing I really want, now is not the time. It doesn't mean it's a no. It's that there's something else I'm supposed to be doing instead that may lead to that, or the timing for that will be much better served a little bit later on. Have that conversation with yourself.
Thank you.
Yes.
Catherine, I just added a post on the chat to last week's episode with Alex Ferrari at the Indie Film Hustle, indiefilmhustle.com. He's got a ton of free resources there for writers, filmmakers at every stage.
He's great.
And
indiefilmhustle.com.
Yes. Yep. And I just typed it up in the chat session. That. Excellent.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, I noticed that you're recording this session. Will this be available later?
Absolutely. It's live right now on Facebook. And it'll be on our YouTube channel, Check the Gate, which you can find links to from cinemaexchange.org. So absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much.
You bet. Also, for everybody else that's listening, episode 3, we had Elliot Grove from the Raindance Film Festival over in London. And Elliot has also started a school for filmmaking, in particular screenwriting. So check out that episode 3. Links are on our website. And also Elliot tells you to connect with him. So it's all there. Yeah, okay, great. Oh, Sean writes bulletproof screenwriting. Yes. Alex Ferrari. Also, things are coming in quick now. Stage 32, but it's hit and miss. I have a half-hour college. Okay, let's see. Okay, Che, I'm gonna unmute you. Che, are you there? Che, are you with us? Okay.
Maybe he's having trouble with his
Okay, turning his audio on.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what he writes. Let's see. I have a half-hour ecologically based program that was accepted for PBS distribution. Congratulations. Would prior distribution eliminate my chances for the IndieFlix platform?
No, I think we're non-exclusive. We are, I mean, we're exclusive when it comes to our big tentpole films that we sort of take out around the world. We are definitely exclusive on that. But as far as other content, we're non-exclusive. And it just has to be, you know, make a contribution of good in the world, raise awareness, create conversation, connection, build community. You know, I will give you a little hint about what's coming that we want to focus on is also, you know, ways to help filmmakers create movements with their films and be seen by more people online and offline.
Bradford.
Oh, hi, Brad.
Writes, not so much a question.
How you doing?
He's on.
Go ahead.
Oh, yes. It's not so much a question, really. It was an observation, Sheila, that you made about how films can be so formative in our lives.
Yeah.
And I've found that watching a film that influenced me early in my life, maybe a decade later, even longer, 20 years later, can help one understand their own behavior. For
Totally.
example, my wanderlust, something like Salvador, when I watched that as a kid, the influence that film had on me, and how it gave me this wanderlust and this desire to observe and be where the action is. So,
Yeah.
very good.
You know, it's funny. I watched The Godfather. You know, when I was growing up, I was the firstborn in my family, and my parents were, I mean, they were kind of, young and dumb when they had me. My mom was 18, my dad was 19. So they didn't really like pay much attention to me. And so they would just drag me along to drive-ins and movies. I saw everything. Like I saw The Godfather, and I remember the horse's head and all that stuff and all that blood and violence. And I don't know, I think I was 9 or 10. And I thought,
Perfect.
this is, my takeaway from that, which is really interesting, was I never want to be in any sort of industry that has that kind of like blood and guts in it. But I really did admire the discipline. I had a lot of respect for the family, right? And that pecking order, and that, I don't know what it was. And that was something that I always it's sort of interesting. I really gravitated towards that aspect of it.
Along Bradford's point, the movie that influenced me greatly in high school, might have been 14 years old, was Ordinary People.
Oh,
yeah.
And it was, just understanding, watching the family and the silence that they had over this death that had taken place. And in my family's real life, we had lost somebody in our family, and it was really traumatic. And I could watch that movie by myself and just, fall into the characters. And that's what movies do for us.
They comfort, they heal, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And I embrace and love all filmmakers. And it's so interesting. I am such a big advocate for filmmakers, because we want to do, like Catherine said, I have a script that I know the world needs, right? Like we just believe in what we're working on so much.
So along those lines, Sheila, I have a documentary on the student loan debt crisis, and it's in post-production. And how should filmmakers look at various platforms, IndieFlix, Netflix, Amazon? What decisions should I be making as a filmmaker / producer when I assess a platform?
I think, again, like I mentioned to Catherine, it's really important to sort of break down. You made this movie for a reason, right? And in a general sense, you have a mission for it. But break it down on a more granular level. Who is the audience? Who needs to see this first in order for there to be real change, right? Is it students? Is it the parents? Is it government? Is it US only? Is this a global thing? Like, start to break down who needs to see it. Then where do those people watch? And then I would start with those platforms first. And then I would think, Windows, it's so interesting. Windows are important, but they're very short now. And people know that. So if they miss it in the theater, they know it's just a matter of very short period of time, if not days before, or even at the same time that it's online. So right now, and I might change because I've gone through different iterations of my feeling about this, but right now I feel like there is no harm in being everywhere. If everywhere means that you will be seen, then you should be everywhere. Because right now, if you're just on one platform only and they're not going to pay you a lot of money for it, you might be missing out on opportunity. And that audience might live in multiple places. So if you can do a non-exclusive deal here, 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 and here, you should be everywhere, right? Unless someone says, I'm going to give you a boatload of money, and I want it exclusively, and I'm going to take it here, I would still sort of limit the amount of time you have with them in case they don't deliver, and all you have is just that money. Because, hopefully, in your case, it would be really nice if in 2 years that wasn't a big problem anymore, right? But we want that awareness out there. We want that action out there. We want that motivation to not create that issue somewhere else.
You're exactly right. And I've been told, and this is perhaps mirrors other issues, that there isn't going to be a movement until there's a movie that kind of brings everybody either together or just mobilizes them, gives them a game plan of some kind, that this is, something that can be conquered or changed or influenced in some way. So I appreciate your response. You developed a foundation. Does that come from revenue from the company? How did you develop the foundation? And is there a way for filmmakers to apply?
So the foundation is, I started the foundation because we noticed that there were a lot of schools that have no funding, no parent board. They couldn't even afford a $500 license fee to show the film a couple times in their school. And so had a couple donors who said I'd be happy to help fund some screenings at these underserved or Title I schools and bring the programming to them. And so it started with that, and then it sort of turned into like helping to fund stories that can change the world, more focused on, kids, women and families and social impact. And now it's IndieFlix does help, support that through revenues, but we also have donors, from small donors to bigger donors. And as far as, and I wish I could say right now, but I'm not there yet, is we need to the world to slow down a little bit, and I need to bring on more people for us to be able to start accepting submissions for funding. We've already got about 6 films in the queue that are currently, in line for some funding. So we're not looking to add to that at this time, but we will create that. And we're also, for IndieFlix submissions in general for the streaming service, we are going to be launching a portal where we can take on new content on a more regular basis, other than filmmaker@indieflix.com, which you can find on the indieflix.com website. But right now you can email us at filmmaker@indieflix.com. And we're going through such a massive sort of evolution this summer. It was always planned. Actually, we were doing a little bit of it in the spring, but that got derailed because of COVID-19. So we just swapped things around a little bit and kind of put everything on steroids.
Wow.
So it's exhausting.
That's great, though. You got something to look forward to, right?
I do.
I don't know what my future is.
I do, and if it flies the way I think it's going to fly, I think it's going to really benefit a lot of people on both sides of the screen.
That's awesome. Wow. Could you talk about, say, one particular success story for IndieFlix, whether it's one of your films or anyone that came to you in terms of reaching an audience?
So I would say, gosh, there's a lot actually, which is great. I didn't think of it in that context. A friend of mine had asked me to make a movie about mental health because I'd taken films out about bullying and screen addiction and, Screenagers. I was one of the producers on that and helped to fund it and distribute it the first year. And that one just sort of blew up and took off. Finding Kind was another one. It was the very first one I got involved with, and I am so close, and the filmmakers are like family to me. And that has been an honor to work on an empowerment project. So I have so many great ones. They're all like family for me. But Angst was the one that a friend of mine had said, you need to make a movie about mental health. And I was just like, no, I'm not touching that. It's depressing. And I don't know anything about that. And I don't think people would want to go watch a movie about mental health. I mean, not a lot of people. And so, and she worked with me. And then a year later, I got a call. I saw her every week. I got a call that she had died by suicide. And that kind of, that threw me off. And she was a mom with kids. And that just, I thought, okay, I knew she was struggling, but I didn't know it was that much. So channeled all of my grief into making Angst, and had a really talented team come aboard. And we just, that film, I'd already seen it before I hired the director, Matt Scarrett, and my producing partner, Karen Gornick. And we just everyone had sort of their own story with anxiety. And I sort of thought, how can we enter the conversation around mental health where it's everybody can relate, and it's not suicide, and it's not OCD or schizophrenia or something like that, but it's something everyone can relate to. And anxiety is something everyone has. It keeps us alive, and it's part of the human condition. It's just, why is it suddenly going sideways and becoming too much? So making angst was a real privilege, and that's where I literally channeled all my grief. And in making that one came about the impact of social media on our lives. And in making that one came the Upstanders, which is all about, why are people so mean online in this whole cyberbullying when they wouldn't be that way in person? But angst has gone on to do like about 8,000 screenings in 90 countries, and it's subtitled into 7 languages now, actually probably 11, and it's dubbed into Spanish. And I thought no one's going to want to watch a movie about mental health, and yet I was so wrong. And it's done such good in the world, and they send us emails and they talk about how it saved their lives or their kid's life, or I wish I'd seen it as a kid, I wouldn't have self-medicated so much, or we've just heard it all. It's part of so many other kind of missions and incentives, and it's a privilege to have made that movie, and I'm grateful that I channeled my grief in that way and got to work with such an amazing team. And then, so I would say that is definitely one of the kind of good stories. Like is another one that just, like is like the little sister to the heavy big brother of angst. Not that it's heavy, because it's filled with hope and it's a great movie, but Like comes in and she's like this popular little sister, right? Everybody loves Like because she's just cool, and it's not scary to talk about mental health when you're talking about it with regards to social media and technology. So I have learned so much about the human condition and how to help people. And I've learned about myself. And so, everything after that is, it's all icing.
That's awesome. That's a great example of success. Actually, it's just, and it keeps multiplying. It sounds like when you're on the right track and you've
It does. And
really hit on something.
What's so funny is and it goes to festivals, like these films go to festivals, but I've told this story before, but I'll meet people and I'll be at a festival and I go, oh yeah. Someone will say, this is Scilla, she's IndieFlix. And they'll be like, oh yeah, you made that mental health movie. You're like that mom who does those little school screenings. And it's like, yep, that's me. Those little school screenings. And I don't think people realize that, when you do 100 screenings a month, when you're doing 8,000 screenings around the world, when you're reaching millions of families, that's impact, right? That's measurable, but it's not sexy because it's not on Run Track and it's not on a billboard and it's not playing in an empty theater on a reel of trailers, which by the way, I love the trailers. So it's just interesting. The world is shifting very much. It'll be really interesting to see because production is shut down, right? So what are we going to watch?
Except in Australia.
So you'll start watching Aussie movies or movies from Asia, or a lot of reruns or things we never thought we would watch, or we're going to start watching homemade stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be really interesting to see between this fall when we're used to new shows coming out and next year, like what's going to happen. And then all the stuff that we'll finally get back on track. It's this stockpile, and then we're going to get inundated again with content. And how are we going to find what to watch? It's going to be it's going to be super fun.
You got a great attitude about it. Hey, Sean's got a question. Sean, I'm going to unmute you. Sean, you with us?
He's muted.
Yes.
Oh, there you are.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm not present right now. So
you're present here. We can hear your voice. So.
Yeah. Oh, as far as a question, I had a couple questions, but they were kind of already answered. I guess as first, talking with Scilla as a distributor and being a filmmaker, starting a crowdfunding kind of source meant, but you kind of answered that before as far as helping filmmakers with their projects and funding them and And you said that you're already looking at doing that and allocating funds for that.
Yes. I mean, Emily does a great job with Seed and Sparks. So like, if anything, I'd rather support her in doing that than to like start doing that myself. It's a whole nother business. But
She'll be on with us in June. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, great. Emily's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I think that, I'm looking to come at it from a different angle. I've done my own crowdfunding, so I know firsthand how hard it can be and how much work it is. And, that was, and maybe it's changed since I did it a couple of years ago, but I'm looking for a sort of a different way to come about it, in addition to what she does.
Yeah, and that's why we've looked into it too, and we're involving smart contracts. That's why I brought up blockchain.
Yeah.
And doing smart contracts, tokenizing the crowdfunding, and bringing in the community, so it's not just reliant upon the filmmakers raising the funds, but I can't really go into more of that unless it's a private conversation, but involving the community in a different way that hasn't been done before. And that way that'll circle back around, and it's going to also connect the communities as well in the same process. So it's an involvement where it's not just you get a sweatshirt or a hat,
Right.
in trade. It's more of having skin in the game and being a part of that, like kind of a penny stock, analogy.
Well, and I like the whole ledger aspect, the transparency, and the whole thing just feels so good. I just think it's the future, period.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. We're all like not talking about those things that we're kind of working on, which is so funny.
All right. So where do we see the sort of building upon this? Where do we see the industry going? Film festivals going?
That's
in your crystal ball, without giving things away.
I don't know anything. I just have gut feelings, but I would say that we will get back to going to a theater with amazing HEPA filters built in and watching movies again with what we already know. But I think that we will also have an online component to all of it. I think that everything moving forward will be a hybrid. It'll be a blend. We have been forced to have this. And actually, frankly, I think we'll be better off in the end, because festivals that might be, hard to get to, or just only so big, or a certain time, or could only physically hold so many people, have the opportunity through great programming, great panels, great, offerings, or good intent, or good missions, to be able to share globally their experience. And I think festivals, it's kind of like shaking them, saying, just because a film has been here doesn't mean that the people in your community don't want to come see it, right? Films should be celebrated. Films should be put out there big for all to enjoy. And so maybe it's not about films going to 25 or 30 film festivals and going broke in the process as the filmmaker. Maybe it's about doing a handful of film festivals and using that as a true launch, to be online, to be monetized, where even the film festival can reap revenue. It's like we're disrupting all of this. And I personally think with the right amount of focus and tension and the right teams, I think film festivals will end up far better than they've ever been, and they can stop living hand to mouth.
Wow. I think that's it's a great vision. And that very well could happen.
And it won't be a million festivals, right? Like it'll just be the few, right? Unfortunately.
Well,
anyone can start a film festival. You and I can start a film festival right now, put it up on Film Freeway, and start charging money to collect content, and then show only some of it, right? There's no oversight. There's no one saying, are you a true film festival? Are you like, there is no, sort of like best practice and standard. It's reputation. It's, it's reviews. It's people who actually know people. And so I don't know that as many film festivals will be in existence. But I think it's a great opportunity. They're going to morph. But what do I know?
Well, I think you're onto something. I mean, the reason why we started the Northeast Filmmakers Lab, because we thought there was plenty of film festivals out there, and filmmakers needed more of a lab, which
Yeah, totally.
and we're going to use this technology this year because our venue just hasn't reopened, which is a sad thing. But we'll have 3 days of one-on-ones and small group discussions right here on Zoom and in breakout groups.
Yep.
So, and then hopefully we can get our filmmakers out to you and to other distributors, and we can impact the world. So, speaking of impacting the world, if there's going to be a renaissance in the arts, filmmaking, after we finally reopen, what's needed most, or is perhaps missing right now, to make a renaissance happen?
What's missing most to make a renaissance happen?
Yeah. Do you think it's possible to have a renaissance, to come out of this and have somewhat of a renaissance? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our stories are going to change big time. I look at movies now, and of course, all we see is like people all tons of, crowds, and everyone's close together, and there's no social distancing, right? And so I'm curious when shows will have that in it, right? When we can, watch a movie that mirrors what we're living now. As far as a renaissance, I do think something's going to happen. I think that we're figuring out ways to create content. Look at all the late night talk shows are all home editions, and to see their creativity, right?
Right.
I think our expectation, like, who knows if what we really need is some tons of costumes, lights and explosions and fireworks and everything in order to be entertained. Maybe we don't need to be so stimulated. Maybe story will have more power and more impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe prices will come down on things because you're not paying for all of that huge light show. Maybe that won't be the norm, the standard. Maybe that will be just the exception. And we get back to, I always talk to people, and I'm always saying, how will this time affect you? What will be a permanent change in you that you've already recognized in yourself? Like, I have a lot of friends who are like, I'm not going to go shopping nearly as much. Like, why am I buying all these clothes, right? I've worn the same thing for the last 2 months. And I have so many friends who are like, I'm going to dye my own hair from now on, or I'm going to, whatever. Like, people are a little more, I guess, down to earth. That's not the right word, because buying clothes and getting your hair done or whatever is not being down to earth. I think our priorities are shifting. I think our stories will change. And I think that I'm curious to see what comes out of homemade movies with modern technology.
I do think you're onto something. And just like what we're doing here, if this doesn't happen, you and I wouldn't be talking. Check the Gate doesn't get started, but not just here, but I mean, there's so many different options. This morning, I'm on a call with location managers, because I do location work on the side up here in upstate New York. But Australia's on the call, California's on the call, New York's on the call, New Jersey's on the call, London's on the call, and it's just like, whoa, we've just broken open this industry, and we're reuniting it, and we're sharing a lot of information really quickly. Something may really extraordinary come out of that, and then writers are doing it over at Screen International or the International Screenwriting Association, and Sundance has Sundance Collab, and they've got all these resources on there. It's just amazing the amount of information that's coming forward, and the access to people, like yourself, the CEO of a distribution company. It's just, that wouldn't happen normally, right? So
I particularly like when I'm like meeting, like a CEO of a big company, and they're in their laundry room, and there's like laundry in the back, and because it's the only place that's quiet. Or this is my favorite. I have a CEO that I'm working with who I just adore, and he's in his daughter's room, and with a princess bed and stuffed animals, and here he is, sort of like this big important CEO. It's just so funny. You wouldn't get that vibe. You wouldn't be able to make that kind of a connection had we met in New York in the big, tall buildings with everyone in their suits.
And be intimidating, and what would have been shared wouldn't have happened. perhaps.
Yeah.
It's
Totally.
it's a different. So, all right. So here's our martini question. Last question. What's the best advice you've received coming up about filmmaking, your career, life in general, that helped you and might help others who are tuning in?
I've gotten a lot of not so great advice, but I think some of the, I had a conversation with someone once, a big producer, and I had made some short films. In fact, my first short film got shortlisted for an Oscar. It's the list before the nominations. And I'd made, other short films, and, he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a filmmaker. And he said, but you are a filmmaker. I said, no, not yet. And he said, what do you need to do? Get an Oscar in order to call yourself a filmmaker? You are making movies. You're writing, you're directing, you're producing. You are a filmmaker. You need to own that. Say, I am a filmmaker. And I realized I had been really struggling with that. And maybe that was, I don't know. It was just, so when someone used to say to me, what do you do? And I'd be like, I used to say, I'm trying to write a script. And I just started saying, I'm a filmmaker. I started to own who I was. And when you do that, those words are powerful. You're saying it not necessarily for anyone else, you're saying it for you. And when you do, doors start to open. People suddenly say, oh, what are you making? We should talk, we should meet. It's just how you view yourself, how you treat yourself is how you are modeling how you want the world to treat you.
Oh my God, that is brilliant. I got the chills because it resonates for me. And I hope everybody else here took note, because that is just great advice. Thank you for passing it on. It looks like we went way over time. I so appreciate, Scilla, your extra time. It's not your fault, it's mine. But I really appreciate your extra time and advice. And I'd love to have you back and be connected to our film lab and just learn more through IndieFlix.com. Next Thursday, my guest will be Dan Marvish, Slam Dance. Register online at cinemaexchange.org. Register for the Northeast Filmmakers Lab there as well. If your business would like to sponsor future episodes, maybe you can't do it now, yet a year from now, make a donation on our website at cinemaexchange.org/donate. Thanks again, Scilla. Everybody take a look, subscribe to IndieFlix.com. Enjoy, be well. Stay healthy, stay connected. This has been Check the Gate. Our gate is good. Let's move on, people.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome. Thank you, Scilla.
All righty. Bye.
Bye.